Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Moore. I'm a student at Los Angeles Pacific University, and today I will be giving a TED Talk discussing how the Christian worldview intersects with views on gender, sexuality, and family practices or family structures, and how these principles can impact my work as a future medical health professional or provider. I'll touch on various biblical structures that provide some insights into historical context of these viewpoints, and reflect on how faith informs my approach to mental health care. As well as in the Bible, gender is often depicted as binary, with clear roles assigned to both males and females, also there being the only two categories of male and female. Some of the earliest references for this can be found in the book of Genesis and Leviticus, summarizing males and females as having dedicated and specific gender roles within the home and community, and sets the foundation for the traditional societal norm or viewpoint on gender categories, male and female. Throughout Scripture, there are other passages that further reinforce this, such as Ephesians 5:23 describes the husband as being the head of the household, or being specifically ahead of the wife. And Timothy 2:11 through 12 restricts women from participating or teaching in religious authority or, high practices within the church, and they do not rule with authority over men, specifically in the community or religious construct. These teachings suggest that gender roles were not only defined by strictly enforcing these rules, particularly when it came to religious authority and leadership, but there is more inclusive messages in further books within the Bible that create more of an inclusive viewpoint. One of these passages could be Galatians 3:28, which basically states that there is neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, female or male that is excluded. We are all one under Christ. This passage highlights the spiritual equality of all people, regardless of gender, sexual identity, or even cultural background. In the eyes of Christ, we are all valued equally. And this kind of will also segue into another point later in my presentation. The Bible also addresses sexuality, particularly in the book of Genesis 2:24. Therefore a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife, and they become one flesh, establishing the heterosexual norm that marriage is between a man and a woman. There are also scriptures basically saying that Eve was made from the rib of a man and is therefore the flesh of a man and is submissive to him. Further, Leviticus 18:22 and 20:13 clearly condemn same-sex relationships verbatim, calling them an abomination. These scriptures are used today to argue against same-sex relationships or marriages, or debates between Christian teaching and practices. However, it's important to acknowledge that interpretations of the Bible have evolved in the New Testament. While the Old Testament may present a stricter view of gender roles and sexuality, the New Testament offers a more open-ended interpretation, being more inclusive of both gender differing roles, switching roles, or even sexual practices or preferences, as well as, gender identities, transitioning, the LGBTQA community. Galatians, again, 3:28 advocates for equality of all people under Jesus Christ or God. Therefore, those who are religious typically do not discriminate against people of different identities. The Old Testament was during the time of 12,000 to 165 BC. It presents a more strict societal norm of the male and female roles within society, where, men work in the outside community as well as in the church, whereas women were housemakers and supporters of their family and husbands. Sexuality was restricted to heterosexual marriages, and anything outside of that, as well as like premarital sex or same-sex relationships, were considered sinful. And then in the New Testament, contrastly, 50 to 100 AD introduces some leniency in these ideas. Celibacy and immorality are still highly judged or frowned upon. There's a clear emphasis, there's a clear emphasis on equality of all people, regardless of gender or sexual identity. Again, circling back to Galatians 3:28 as my biggest example, that everyone is equal under God. All differences between culture and personal preference is eradicated. The Bible's teachings on gender and sexuality continue to shape Christian practices today. Many still adhere to traditional views such as heterosexual marriage and gender-specific roles within the household, or traditional marriage roles, particularly in family structures where men are expected to be breadwinners, whereas women are expected to be caretakers, homemakers, nurturers. And then as well as this, the traditional views are increasingly being challenged in today's world. Society embraces a more diverse look on these roles, whereas men might be doing more womanly roles and women might be doing more manly roles, but the goal is to kind of eradicate that gender-specific norm and just have them as roles that everyone does, as well as leading more into the world of interpretation of the Bible and its scriptures. We do not want to exclude or condemn against the LGBTQ community. They might be religious or religious followers as well and may feel ostracized for not fitting into that normal biblical role. That I also want to get back to with the biblical role. It's also kind of based on historical norms. When the Bible was written back in those dates, it was definitely very dependent on what was happening in society, and I think that shows within the Old Testament versus the New Testament. With it, as time going on, these challenges or these things evolved and become a little bit more open-minded or less judgmental. In the realm of mental health, these societal shifts mean that many clients may hold beliefs that either align or do not align from my view or Christian worldview or teachings. It's essential for me as a mental health professional, as well as all mental health professionals, to approach these differences with compassion and respect. As a mental health professional, many Christian faith encourages to be compassionate and open-minded. So compassion, love, and hospitality is both a kind of societal norm for good values, as well as values that are shared within the Christian worldview. However, I recognize that my views may not always align with my clients' views and beliefs, and that is totally okay. People can have opposing opinions, but as a mental health professional, it's my role to listen, understand, and basically support clients based on their unique needs, backgrounds, stories, and interpretations, and just move forward with those same values that I would share with everyone despite their background. Faith helps practice basically kindness and empathy and love, whereas so do good moral values. I strive to provide a non-judgmental and supportive space where I can work through my patients' challenges without making them feel alienated or that I am judging them or frowning upon them based on their difference in viewpoints. I understand that my job is to meet clients where they are and not necessarily influence them based on my personal preference or viewpoints, and just to really accept them for where they are and who they are, and help them based on the issues that they're presenting to me at the time. This ensures that I can offer professional and client-centered care while honoring my own beliefs. In conclusion, I would say Christian teachings have historically shaped views on gender, sexuality, and family structures. As a mental health professional, it's essential to provide care that respects and honors diverse beliefs of everyone, while also embodying those values of love and kindness. Thank you for your time today, and I hope this gives a little bit clearer view on how gender and sexuality can be viewed in a Christian lens. Thank you.